This week, our guest expert, Ari Guimon, and I do Web Design 102 Intermediate Visual Design. He interviews, guess who? Yours truly. And he asked me the question, how do I get my designs to be right every time? And the art and science of matching your clients' businesses' stories with the visual design. Stay tuned. Welcome to episode numero 16. I am your host, Jose Caballero, the Chief Creative Officer of digital agency The Group. Every week, we answer your business, technology, creative, and marketing questions with our guest experts, and I am excited to have Ari again back. I think at this point, it's a co-host.
Yeah, right?
It's been about 10 times in a row.
My own segment or something.
You might need your own segment. I'm excited about today's episode, and I want you guys to talk to us live. And welcome to our guests in Australia. And you're getting up probably way too early for me, but we welcome you. You can join us in the chat room at ustream.tv/thisweekin or at youtube.com/thisweekin. Also, you can ask questions either during the live broadcast or afterwards via Twitter. My Twitter is @JoseCaballero, @JoseCaballero. That is the best way for me to answer your questions. If you leave them on YouTube, I'll see them, but not as fast as on Twitter. And the hashtag, please use it, is TWI Web Design, This Weekend, or TWI Web Design. On Facebook, and there's a title card right here below, please like us. Right now, we have about 42 people that like us on Facebook.
Is that it?
Which
we need more.
It's a little bit embarrassing. We need a little bit more. Here's the challenge. By next week, next Tuesday's show, can we get to 100? I mean, we get like 10,000 people that download this on iTunes. Come on, we can get a few people there.
Like us on Facebook.
Please like us on Facebook. That's Ari's request. So the next way that you can get a hold of us is on YouTube and leave comments below. You can leave questions about the episode. You can say, wow, that was a great episode. I really look at your questions and answer them. Most of the segments and most of the things you're seeing on this show are from your questions. Without them, you know, it's kind of hard to program. So please leave your questions. And one of the most important things that I like on iTunes, subscribe to the channel, have it on your podcast, on your mobile device of choice, iPhone, etc. And leave a review. What do you like about the show? Oh, thank you, KY Jelly. Nice name. Facebook liked.
All right.
There we go. Somebody liked us on Facebook. You know, joining the conversation again, Ari, today I want to introduce you again. Tell me a few of your clients and what you're working on right now. Like, we're going to have a conversation here today.
I mean, things I've done recently, you know, we worked on the redesign of MySpace. We worked on Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution site. We worked on the Disney El Capitan Theater. There's a couple of startups that I'm working with right now. Seth Epstein from Social Stay, who was here a few weeks back, is one of them. And also still doing a lot of great work with the group.
So you're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
You do a lot of stuff. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
For driving all the way out here. So the topic today is really something that's been evolving from our viewers. And I want to start by answering a few questions before we start and give out some shout outs and answer some of the questions. You asked us these questions. So here we go. At Zach Pennington, thank you, from Nashville, Tennessee, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. Here's his Twitter handle below. He asked us the question, Jose, is there a way I can get a hold of the document you were working on Monday's episode? It is online. You can have the Storkbrokers brief that we used if you go to, oh Jesus, now I'm forgetting the damn name of the service. The presentations website that you put all your stuff up and you put presentations.
Dropbox.
We link to, no.
Oh, PBWorks.
No, it's SlideShare. SlideShare. I knew I would remember. So go to slideshare.com and search for the group, and you will find that presentation. We'll keep on putting those up for you when you request them. Thank you for asking. Next, I have a question from Todd. Todd Swardensky. What do agencies look for in intern applicants? And I'll speak for ourselves, for the group. Ari, what do we look for?
I mean, I think it's things that, like graphic. From a graphic standpoint?
I think he's talking about graphics.
About both? I mean,
let's say
graphics,
both.
I mean, I'd say, like, just really quickly, I would look for anything that applies to what we do. So if they've done, like, great icon sets or they're really good with typography, like, those are, like, two key kind of things that we look for.
Typography. Knowing the basics.
From, like, a non-graphic, I'd say, like, the space that we work in is so dynamic and it's changing so rapidly that I think somebody that stays on top of things and is willing to grab something new and learn it, it's not like I'm not going to do that because I'm not familiar with it.
PHP,
kind of thing.
WordPress,
anything new that comes out, Squarespace,
Squarespace.
Like anything new that applies to what we do, like you really need to like jump on there and.
To me, the most important thing is that they have a willingness to learn, that they're very coachable, that they want to learn, and they like to have fun.
Right.
I mean, we've had, how many interns we have. Over the last 10 years, we've probably had over 50 interns, and they've all done a great job, and they've all gone to great careers, and I still track them where they are all around the world, and they're awesome. Group interns, groupies, you guys are awesome.
You guys rock.
Thank you so much. If you're watching the show, leave a comment below on YouTube or on Facebook. So next question is from from Twitter. Janice Lippins, all the way out from, you know what? I was wearing a flag anyway, all the way out from Eastern Europe, and thank you for watching out there. How do I start an agency and split the agency profits if I make a team of 3 professionals, salary plus 33% for each? That's a big question, and that is an entire episode, but I'm going to give you the very short answer. I think compensation, there's a lot of answers. You can do it in a lot of ways. When it comes to partnerships, the majority of the advisors I have would say always have someone who has a majority ownership. Most people will say that, very rare. Designers, we don't like that. Creative people is like, oh, come on, love, share.
Yeah, let's split it up evenly.
I love you, man. I love you.
Right.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Somebody has to have, if there's a problem, things are good when things are good. If there's a problem, then that happens. Now, in terms of sharing profits, it's your choice to disperse the profits in addition to any of the revenue. We haven't necessarily done that through the group. We've always done compensation via cash and options. Right. But you can do that definitely. This is what Jeff Dodges, the co-founder of Racerfish, who I had as my guest about 7-8 shows ago, he said to me when I started the group, for every 50 cents you sell, it should cost you 50 cents to make.
For every
so that's
dollar
your labor
you sell.
cost. For every dollar you sell, it should cost you 50 cents to make. The other 50 cents, the gross profit, is I'm reading one of the questions, but the gross profit is split between general overhead and expenses like computers, hosting, this and that, and then you have 20% of profit. Usually, most agencies do not average that. They get 15. You have to be really good at operating your business to get such a high profit margin.
That's a good question.
And KY or Kai says, hey, I'm finding my students are too focused on the software and not enough on honing in their basic creative talent.
Right.
So I am 37. I graduated from school 16 years ago or 15 years ago. I haven't necessarily updated a lot of my software skills. I still direct and design through other people. What's the importance of it depends on what you choose to do.
I mean, I'd say for me, and knowing a lot of great designers that are both people that I went to school with and that I've collaborated with, I'd say having a solid foundation of design, talent, knowledge, however you want to call it, is key. And then like the tools that you work with, I mean, it just depends on the needs, I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to be up to date with all the most recent software to be a great designer.
Well, here's the challenge. You can use the software to make shit. That's one of the problems, is that you know the software in and out and you're still not good. So I would encourage, and you know what, and there's no right answer. And I'm not an expert in defining this. It works very differently for different people. What I would say, though, is that if you're great at visual, I was a good designer and a good visual person, and I could draw before I could even use software.
Right.
And you can never take that away from someone.
Right.
So the challenge is that if you come into design today in the 21st century with the software being your first entree into it,
right, and
you don't back out of it and say, well, here are the basics, here's what I understand works and doesn't, you're going to have a limitation, and you're not going to get the same opportunities. I'd rather hire you if you're a kick-ass artist and designer, or you have good timing, you have that sense of rhythm, you can do that. I can teach you how to edit Final Cut Pro in an afternoon. I can teach you how to use Photoshop in 20 minutes and put you to work on a project. If you don't have that, and you know how to use Photoshop in and out, I'll hire you to teach Photoshop to other people.
Right, or be a production, or
be production.
And then the risk is that your work looks all the same. That's
the risk, and that's what we're going to cover today. So let's actually get a bit into the show. And hey, throw something at me if I say actually, please.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't have Julie. So the final shout out I want to give is to actually to you. You're using a funny name there on the chat room. So Kai Lane, is that pronounced right? Am I pronouncing Kai right? At the University of Sunshine Coast, right here below, we have a shout out Design 221, University of Sunshine Coast. Where you guys are in Queensland, Australia.
Amazing.
What time is it over there? Let me know. Thank you guys for watching. Really love the fact that you love the show. keep on watching and tell us what you want to see. If you want to see it, we'll put it on the show. Today you're going to get a lot of stuff. So we're in the 10-minute mark. Let's shut the hell up and get into that show. All right, it's your show, sir. You're asking me questions.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, I'd say
I'm done.
like something, and it ties directly to what we were talking about previously. I mean, is there anything, when people come to me, they want something that looks unique, that stands out? I mean, is there any, what's your insight on that? Like, how do you make work look really unique and stand out from the rest of the things that are going on out there?
That's a good question, and that's a very hard question. And you know, the best way I can tell that story is probably to share, and thank you, by the way, Ari, for interviewing me today. The first project I did when I left Razorfish in 2001, my first client was Razorfish. It was the founders of Razorfish, Jeff Dodges and Craig Canerick. And it's 8:30 a.m., ladies and gentlemen, in Queensland, Australia. So I got this job, right, from these guys the day I got laid off from Razorfish in 2001, and they were doing a thing called Razorfish Sub Network, which was original content, just like this network. That's except right. It was funky content, disinformation, and weird content, right? And they they wanted me to design the new look and feel for it, so they called me while I was on my way home, and I did an awesome design direction. Like a metaphor was mixing like a classic vintage mixer table, music mixer, right? Yeah. Super cool with buttons, and there was a screen on it. And I showed it to Jeff, and he's like, "Ooh, I don't like this." And I'm like, "I love this thing. I spent so much time on it. I loved it. Look, I was exploring the software and the look of it, but he didn't like it." So I said, "Crap, what do I do?" So this is the first time that I became a filmmaker. Like, I'm in LA, I'm in a loft. I had just moved out of the West Side and moved out downtown LA, and I became a filmmaker. And I said, let me write a story. What's the story about? So I wrote. Oh, and I had just run in. We had an art gallery. We still do on the ground floor of the building we lived in. And I ran into Busta Rhymes, the rapper, and he had done Extinction Level event, which he starts out with, in the year 2000, and the world is gonna end. And I was inspired by that, and I wrote a thing that said, in the year 2020, global media corporations, take over broadcasting. Nobody's allowed to broadcast. Right. And a band of rebels, broadcasting from remote stations.
Talking
on
about
remote
net
packs.
neutrality like 15 years ago.
15 years ago, talking about net neutrality, or talking about this whole, it's happening today. Right. And then what I did, and I'll show it to you, I wrote that and I showed it to Jeff, and he's like, "Brilliant! This is what that story's about. Fuck the man. We're like,
without
building
even showing him design."
No, I didn't show him any design. I sent him the story via email, and I read it to him like that, like Busta Rhymes. I know he likes hip hop, kind of like Jason Calcanis, these New York guys. They're white guys, but they like hip hop, right? So, and he loved it. He loved it. I told him about Busta Rhymes. I told him the reference. That's exactly it. So, and I have it here on my screen, and this is still live from 1990 at artsub.com. And I'll show it to you guys. I even put like a pack on my back, and I filmed myself. That's me. Like, this is, again, my first project out of Razorfish. It was a fun project, and you're decrypting the code. So it is still that aesthetic, like the like console aesthetic, and I was doing it in 3D, and then I was converting it to 1-bit in Photoshop, and I just love that. So this is the whole kit. Even this information, that Devil Girl.
Sticker, yeah.
I designed the Devil Girl. You can see her in books and in a lot. It's still a brand that's around. I got to design 15 years ago, which I love. So, and then there's all these big chunky buttons, and you can go to like this information, and that's the channel, and it shows this stuff, and it's all flash. This is like YouTube before YouTube was YouTube, 10 years ago. So, but the moral of the story is that I didn't sell this on the design. He didn't care per se what it looked like. He trusted my taste.
Right.
But the story had to be tied to the business.
You got buy-in on the story.
You get buy-in on the story.
Right.
So that was my first time I said, I am really a filmmaker. I have to make stories.
That's fantastic, and I think that ties in really well with the second question that I think is, if you have a great design, you're committed, you build something beautiful, and you stand up in front of the client, like, what are the top mistakes that you see designers making when they unveil and present to a client?
Whoo-ha, that's a tough one. This coffee's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a lot of them, and I don't know how to avoid this question. This is good coffee. Look, it's very painful. It's a process that you've learned, over time, and I'm pretty obnoxious if you guys can't tell. So even more so magnify that, like if you have to deal with in a client situation. And I would say that, one of the best examples, I don't know, let me think, that I can share with you there's a couple, but the one I'm going to share a recent one, and then I'm also going to share an older one. I remember at Razorfish, I was creative directing the MoCA website, which is a museum in Los Angeles, a museum of contemporary art, and I presented a design direction that I thought it was right, spot on, and it was simple, it was very elegant, it was modern, and it kind of fit with the museum in terms of time changing and it needing to change. But I just presented one, and it's bam, here it is. Here's what it should be.
You just presented the visual without telling the story.
From my point of view, I think this is great. And then the design. It didn't help the designer that I was working with, and I channel people really well. When empathetically, meaning the designer that I was directing was a little cocky. We ended up firing him just because it was just obnoxious.
Right.
Straight out of art center, really. It
wasn't the right fit.
It wasn't the right fit, but the problem was that specifically there, the client was just like, whoa. Because it wasn't because the direction was wrong. I think the direction that we ended up with was actually, the direction we ended up with was the wrong direction.
Right.
And they paid a lot of money for it, and I hope they're not watching this. There's somebody there left from that administration. But I didn't direct the second one. My founding partner, Mary Gribbin, did. And after doing a bake-off where the client got to choose out of 3 directions, at that point I stepped out, I left, and I went to start. I went to teach at Art Center, but it was a painful lesson because it was my beginning. I had a hard time as a creative director at Razorfish. I was very energetic. I was great with people. I was very creative, but knowing the nuances of how to organize a team and present, I'll admit it, I sucked. And I learned. I was 26, for crying out loud. Or I was 27. I was pretty young.
I think you bring up a really interesting point. It's like when the designer gets up there in front of the client to present, and then the first thing that comes out of their mouth is "I think," or "I something," or
"I am
feel,"
God.
It's about me. This is my creation.
Yeah.
That never comes off super well.
It doesn't come off well, and I'll give you another example. Recently, Savings.com, which you art directed, we had very beautiful design directions with no narrative or no story. They were just like, hey, here's some gorgeous directions that all worked. And the client calls me in New York, and he's like, hey, what the bleep? What, this is not what we hired you to do. Right. He did use the F word, or I don't know. I don't think he did. I'm doing that in the story, but. And I was like, don't worry, I'll come back, I'll fix this for you, and we'll get it on track. And I tell the story over and over again that it wasn't about the design.
It wasn't about the design.
It was about the story.
That's
and a story that touched the users. And I'll share with you, because you saw this. Looking here on my screen, I have these pictures in iPhoto of the presentation that we did. So what we did is we took at the gallery space that we have next door to our office, and we made a show. So we set up, here are all the directions. We set up a table with all the references. We even had music.
You had music.
It was, and every time we changed the direction, we changed the music. Okay, the music goes with this direction. And
do you remember what he said?
What did he say?
He said, "I have goosebumps." The CEO. Yeah.
That's what you want from the client.
What you want, yeah.
You're not, and there's a book, and I wrote it down here in my notes. David Kelly from IDEO, The 10 Faces of Innovation. David Kelly from IDEO, The 10 Faces of Innovation. It talks about the set maker, and that's where I began getting some of these ideas on. And again, it's taken me 10 years with the group, another 6 years at Razorfish, so 16 years to become a better art director. And you know what? I still think I suck sometimes and I make mistakes, even though I'm awesome. Just for the record, I'm awesome. Ari, am I good?
No, you're fantastic. And
you.
I wanted to say something, and it might be a little bit controversial for the creative folks out there, the visual designers, is that when you craft a really good story, and we said this on the way here, like what it looks like in the end is not as important as that story. It can look a number of different ways, but as long as it looks good and it makes sense with the narrative that you've been telling, you'll sell it.
That is controversial because there are designers that you hire them for their style.
Right.
And as a creative director, you're choosing a team for that. Right. And even now, I'm having a hard time figuring out whether I hire people for their style or whether I hire them to be tied to the particular creative vision that we have.
Right.
I happen to be a director that I direct based on the business story, and I am completely not disconnected, but I am, how would I explain it?
Detached.
I'm not detached. No, that's not the right word. I have to be into the idea.
Right.
And I have to feel it. And I do have an aesthetic.
Right. You have to feel confident.
I have to be confident about what the story is.
Right.
And I do have a style per se that I like.
Right.
And you happen to work well within it and like that.
And I mean, I think when a designer has a really strong style and you go to them for that, it kind of facilitates that process a little bit. But at the end of the day, you do want to couch it a certain way. You don't just want to put the graphics out there like, oh, here it is, it's awesome, you know, take my word for it.
And let's look at from the point of view of our audience. If you're a designer who's starting out, like the team, and first of all, you guys are awesome in Queensland, Australia, in class, in 221. You guys are going to go out there in the marketplace. You know, listening, collaborating, being part of a team is an extremely important part of the experience. Bringing your point of view is a great thing. I happen to like references and surround myself with what it is that we're doing, like everything, the books, like we go out shopping. We do work. We go out with the entire team and we go shop.
Or you go to the place, like you guys went to French Laundry.
We went to French Laundry, which is a perfect example.
Exactly.
If you look at the French Laundry site, and this is an unscheduled tour, and we're at the 20-minute mark. You know, let's not get off track. But if you check out the French Laundry and the sites that we did for that on the group website, thegroup.net. Those were inspired by the locations and by the aesthetic of the place.
It's total immersion, right? Like you completely surround yourself with everything that has to do with that particular brand that you're...
And that's why I think, me personally, I am better at launching or relaunching brands. Like at doing something that's new and relaunching it.
Right.
I hate it when an agency or an ad agency, for example, sends us, and if you are an ad agency, if we're going to work with you, or if you're someone who potentially will collaborate together, it's a collaboration. I want to feel valuable to the process.
Right.
I remember Crispin Porter a long time ago, and you were on this project. We did some really amazing, beautiful screens and some design work. They didn't care because they already had a campaign.
They already have it. Campaign,
just do the production. I don't want to be a production shop.
Right.
I don't want to do production for somebody else. If it's not if I don't have a say in the strategy and in the technology and in the creative, all three, I don't want to do it.
You don't feel like you're being valuable to the process.
You can hire much cheaper people to do it. We're very expensive
to do it. Yeah.
All right. What other questions?
So I think this is another good question tying back to like presenting and having a design with a good story behind it. Like, how do you justify this kind of framework that you couch the visuals in? Like, is it just fluff, or is this something that you need to have? And how do you tie it back to the business objectives of the project?
You know, that's the magic, and that's one of the toughest questions. So my mission in life, and this show, I'm dedicated to this because I really do believe that there is a language that allows and facilitates the interaction between business, creativity, and technology. That there is a way, and we're developing that language, and we're using it, and it's a mix of user experience and visual design, and the courses that we're doing in this show, and it's an evolving language, and we've been working on it.
That's brilliant. It's like Esperanto.
It is like Esperanto.
I mean,
luckily in Queensland, Australia, you speak English, which is great. But and most of the world speaks English, the web world, which is great. But business people and creative people are very different. So I'll show you, and this is going to be an epic share. I'm going to share with you a creative brief that's epic in its proportion because of how vast it is. And I'll talk a little bit about this story. Various Wealth Partners, they're very cool people. They're in San Francisco, New York, and in Portsmouth, Maine. They came to us for a redesign of their site, and they're an investment advisory, and they focus on sustainability and great things. That you're not going to invest in something that sucks, right? So it's really aligned with the type of clients we work with. We work a lot with Jamie Oliver. We worked with Al Gore on Live Earth. Now we're working with Shea Panisse, with Alice Waters on the Edible Schoolyard. I personally want to work on things that make an impact on the world. So this is perfect client for the group, and we're working to rebrand them. They're financial people. They have a creative. The first thing I did is during our process, which you saw last week's show with Barrett, with the left brain. During our process, I interviewed them, like if they were like here, like on Charlie Rose style on TV. I said, what does your house look like? What painters do you like? I tried that out for the first time. I had never done it. I had just started doing the show, or I was about to start doing the show. So I'm all like being like, hey, I'm going to interview people. But I did it as part of the creative process, and listening to who they are and what they are really gave me a lot of insights. I wish I could have interviewed everyone. And I ended up interviewing then everybody else for the video that we made for them. But here on my screen, I have the brief, and I'm going to walk through it a bit fast, so bear with me. But here it is on my screen. So here's the cover, Various Wealth Partners, the group, very nice, very professional. Table of contents, the introduction, about where we presented this over the phone. There's a letter, saying hello, this is what this is. Here's the goals, that we have for this document. The brand positioning, where we want to put you, and I call this the MBA quadrant. So we want to put you in the corner of a boutique and high return and high impact consultancy. That's where they are. And then here's your competitors. Here's what they look like. And for the most part, their competitors look pretty ugly. So, they're conservative, they're stodgy. They're financial people, for crying out loud. They're not fashion design or, something sexy or entertainment design.
Right.
By the way, I love working in financial stuff. Don't ask me why. Weird. I love working in financial stuff.
We've done a lot of great projects for financial.
A lot of great projects for financial stuff. If you're a big bank and you need to spend some money, let me know. Here are the users. Again, you guys know this. I'm channeling these users. The brand attributes, which is, hey, here, I'm mindful, fulfillment, and you guys can't see them from there, but those are the brand attributes there. And the brand attributes all come together into the brand statement. Verisk provides visionary services to mindful clients through an authentic approach that helps them fulfill their desires for sustainable wealth and impact. Damn, that came out from that workshop. We did that in a space of an hour.
That's good.
And I can do that in 5 minutes.
I like how you highlight those keywords there.
Yeah, it's, and somebody asked on Twitter right before the show, and if you're watching, you asked, how do you maintain clients' expectations? That's the answer right there. You're walking them progressively. None of these things got presented at once.
Right.
But you got presented, and does this sound like you?
Exactly.
Does this sound like you?
And you can always fall
Does
back
this sound
to
like
the
you?
previous steps where they approved it, right?
You want to know how to meet clients' expectations? Read a book called Getting to Yes. Very simple. Getting to Yes. It's a sales book. It's about objective negotiation. And it basically says that if you can get somebody to say yes, 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 yes to a bunch of small decisions, when the big one comes, this is what a site looks like, they'll say yes. So this process is not coming, it's coming from me as a creative saying, what the fuck do these people know? Sorry, this is a G show on iTunes. What do people know on the business side that I don't know that I can use to design stuff? And that's basically a technique from objective negotiation. So keeping on going, very quickly, visual references. Okay, so looking at my screen, we did visual references, but we went nuts. Since I interviewed them, we did architecture, fashion, art, and cultural memes and movements. This is not an art history class, but we showed them what the stuff that they said they liked looked like. So we're repeating back to them. If you listen and repeat back to the client, they say, wow, you're listening, and yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, do these look like websites? Hell no, these don't look like websites. They're not websites. Why would you show references of interiors and of fashion on a website? You know why? These are the people you're designing for. This is the lifestyle that you're designing for. Architects do this. I've seen this in architects, studios. Recently, we started working on a project. We're collaborating with a really great firm here in LA called Commune. Shout out to Commune. And they have beautiful office where they have all of the stuff on the walls. I'll fast forward to these two slides right here, which I think are fascinating because the identity for the site came from that. This is the favorite painter that one of them mentioned. So we took a lot of the references from this painter and we put them into this creative brief. And here's what it is. So how does this inform the damn final direction, which is the question? First of all, we're listening to them and they're an investment fund. Look, happy people, blue and yellow and the sand and Martha Stewart and Maine and the East Coast. Oh, here's the other thing. They're also old hippies. So we had to show the rebellion and the love, the women's liberation movement. They have offices in San Francisco. So you combine these two lifestyles, which is a manifestation of that, and then you continue by then saying, okay, so here's some sites in the investment. We didn't do these sites. These are just references. And again, you want to gather as much stuff you want about what the possible look and feel is, and you show this to the client. Which ones do they like most? And people are going to say, well, like I had a student at UCLA accusing me of telling him to copy other stuff as a way to do his work. And that's not what I was doing. I was telling him, use references and make your work, because his work was god-awful. And I said, at least at a minimum, make it look good, like something that's already existent.
Right.
Mimic before you really do. That's what I was trying to teach him. But references are important. Here's some of the color palettes. Here's some of the things. This was all presented in this way before we did design directions. And I'm just going to jump right away like in a cooking show. And here's what the site looks like. So if we go to my screen again, look at that. So you see this painterly detail here? Where do you think that came from? Their logo is based on this stratification of paintings. Look at the colors. The colors come from that damn set of pictures of Maine, of blue and sunshine.
I like the layering too.
Yeah, and the layering is about investing. It's about time. It's about... So I am painting this story in a site that at the end looks pretty standard and traditional, you know, like the Apple site has a big image, it looks a little bit like the group site. People don't understand aesthetics. They're not going to know the differences. They're only going to get hooked on the story narrative, and if they see that translate. Can I ask an investment advisor to tell me what aesthetic is better, this one or this one? No, that's why they hired us.
Right.
So you can't expect them to approve aesthetic. You need to have them approve a story that's in line with the narrative of who they are as a business.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So basically what you're saying is if you had gone to them straight and showed them that thing at the end. Like
even three directions straight.
Right.
They would have been like, well, we don't like this, we don't like that.
Right.
But they said yes to everything before it, and all of the directions we presented were in line with what they had.
That's amazing.
Brilliant.
That validates it right there, the whole process.
Plus 5 people. So this gives me another kind of thing, and if we bring up, listen, this weekend on the 30th, on the 1st, we're doing that first workshop, group school workshop, the first one that we're doing. We've done other workshops, but this is special. This is this curriculum, and I'm going to do right here, the URL, groupschool.net. If you go to groupschool.net, you can see what the workshop is about. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go, the first 2 people that tweet me at Jose Caballero, who tweet me, I want to go because I watch your show. I'll give you free tickets. These are $600 tickets. I'll give you free tickets. The first 2 people who tweet me who are here in LA who want to come to the workshop this weekend because I want to share this with people. What other questions, Ari? Is that it? We have to wrap up. We're at the 30-minute mark.
I think that sums it up beautifully, like why we need to tell a story. And I think you said it perfectly, like saying yes to a lot of small questions will lead to a yes at the end, when you have the final presentation. And
you know, and get excited about what you're doing. I personally, in order for me to do a project, I have to be into it. Like if I can't get into the computer and like do this into the software and I'm designing this. I like doing that, and that's really cool.
And we talk about that, like for example, when you present multiple design directions, you have to love each one, because if you don't love one in particular, and that one gets chosen, then it's like, oh man, they chose the one I didn't like.
You have to be disconnected. And I'm going to challenge, you know, the folks again, like us on Facebook. Thank you so much. Get everyone in your class to go to Facebook after you like us. Ask questions. I can post some of these examples. The ones that I can, remember, I can't post all of them because they are client projects. But I can post what I can, and I can ask permission to post more. So again, it's your show. Ask us. Next week, join us for part 3 of Web Design 102, Intermediate Production. And Ari is going to share some of the production tips, tricks, and how to create visual elements, how to make Photoshop fly, because you're freaking fast, dude. I have never seen anybody work as fast as I've seen Ari work in Photoshop.
Thank you.
And create Web 2.0 looks, but still keep it fresh, because Web 2.0 is over. We're in a new bubble, according to some of the people I've seen on Twitter. So how do you make Web 3.0? Let's answer that question.
There you go.
What is Web 3.0, and how, I'm making this up, and how do you design for Web 3.0? Next week on This Week in Web Design, your questions, we answer them. See you next week.